It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I'd been holding the same cup of coffee for almost an hour. It had gone cold. I wasn't drinking it. I was just holding it, sitting by my window, watching a woman across the street carrying her groceries while her husband held the door. And it hit me, sitting right there, that I hadn't said one word out loud in 2 whole days. Not one. I'm 76 years old. My name is Pearl Mae Dawson, and I've lived alone for 9 years now, since my husband Walter passed. And I want to tell you something the doctors never told me. The pamphlets never told me. My own children never told me. 5 things. 5 things nobody warns you about living alone after 70. Not the things you'd expect. Not eat your vegetables or take your pills. The quiet things. The ones that creep up on you so slow you don't even feel the door closing behind you. I've lived every one of these. And if even one of them sounds like your life right now, do me a favor and drop the word alone in the comments below. I read them. I read every single one. Because I know I'm not the only one sitting by a window with cold coffee. Let me start from the beginning. When Walter died, I told everybody I was fine. More than fine. I had my house, my church, my independence. After 51 years of marriage, of fixing his plate and minding his schedule and sleeping on my side of the bed, I had the whole thing to myself. I could eat cereal for supper. I could stay up till 2 in the morning watching old pictures. Nobody to answer to. And for a while, that felt like a gift. That's the first warning, and it's the one that fooled me longest. Warning 1. The isolation don't feel like loneliness. It feels like freedom. Here's the trap nobody tells you about. When you first start living alone, the quiet feels like peace. You think you finally figured out how to live without needing anybody. My sister Verna would call and say, "Pearl, come to the church supper." And I'd say, "Not this week, honey, I'm tired." And then not next week either. My neighbor would knock and I'd watch her through the curtain and pretend I wasn't home. It happened in inches. Not one big day. Just a slow drifting away from people. And every step felt reasonable. Felt like rest. But isolation moves like water. It fills every low place so gentle you don't notice you're underwater. One morning I woke up and counted backward and realized I hadn't had a real conversation, a real one, looking in somebody's eyes conversation, in 11 days. And I told myself that whole time that I was at peace. I wasn't at peace. I was disappearing. Here's what I learned, and I want you to hear me. You cannot wait until the loneliness gets unbearable to do something about it. Because by then, you've forgotten how to be around people. You've gotten rusty at it. You have to reach out while you still have enough of yourself left to reach. I called Verna and I said 3 words I never said in my life. I'm lonely, Verna. And she came over that Saturday with her crossword, and we didn't talk about a thing that mattered. And it was the best afternoon I'd had in a year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because warning number 2 snuck up on me while I was still pretending warning number 1 wasn't real. Warning number 2. Your body stops warning you and starts surprising you. When you're younger, your body gives you notice. A little ache, a little stiffness, plenty of time to do something about it. After 70, living alone, it stops asking permission. I had a neighbor, Miss Geneva, lived 2 doors down, 78 years old and sharp as a tack. One ordinary Tuesday, she reached up to get a bowl down from a high shelf, lost her footing, and went down, broke her wrist. She lay on that kitchen floor for 6 hours before her son came by, because there was nobody else in that house to hear her call out. 6 hours. And here's the thing that chilled me. Geneva wasn't sick. She wasn't frail. She was healthy. It wasn't her health that nearly finished her. It was that she was alone when the ordinary thing went wrong. That's the part nobody prepares you for. When you live with somebody, a small accident is just a small accident. He helps you up, you laugh about it, you move on. When you live alone, that same small accident, a slip, a dizzy spell, a misstep, it can sit you on the floor for hours. The accident isn't bigger. You're just by yourself when it happens. And being by yourself turns small into dangerous. So I did the things I swore I'd never do because they made me feel old. I put a Grey bar in the bathroom. I got rid of the pretty throw rug Walter and I bought in 1985, the one I tripped on twice. I got one of those medical alert buttons. And Lord, I feel foolish wearing it at first, like I was wearing a sign that said fragile. But you know what's more foolish? Lying on a cold floor for 6 hours because pride wouldn't let you push a button. I'd rather feel a little foolish and be safe than feel proud and being dangerous. Now, warning number 3 is the sneaky one, because it doesn't hurt. It doesn't break anything. It just quietly chips away at you when nobody's looking. Warning 3. When nobody's watching, you stop taking care of yourself. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you set the table for a meal you ate alone? Real plate, real fork, sat down. When Walter was alive, supper was something. Set table, the good plates on Sundays. After he passed, I stopped cooking. A sandwich standing at the counter, crackers and cheese in front of the television. Some nights, just nothing at all. Because who was I cooking for? It crept up on me. Within a few months, I was tired all the time. Heavy. Moving through my own kitchen felt like wading through deep water. And one Saturday, my daughter Renee came by unannounced and found me at 4 in the afternoon, still in my house coat, hair not done, sitting in a dark living room. And she said real soft, "Mama, when did you last eat a real meal?" I couldn't answer her. I couldn't remember. That was the day I made a rule. And it sounds so small you might laugh. I sit at the table. Every meal. Even if it's just scrambled eggs and a piece of toast. Real plate. I pour my drink in a glass, not the mug. Some nights, I light the little candle Renee gave me. And it sounds foolish, but it says something to me without words. It says, Pearl, you are still worth feeding. You are still worth sitting down for. Your life still counts, even when there's nobody here to see it. When you live alone, you have to become the person who watches you. Because the truth is, nobody else is going to. And that brings me to warning 4, which is the one I fought the hardest. The one that nearly cost me everything. Warning number 4. The longer you wait to ask for help, the harder it gets to ask at all. I was a proud woman. Still am, if I'm honest. When my son Marcus offered to help me sort through my bills, I said, I've got it. When Verna mentioned one of those grocery delivery services, I said, I don't need charity. Anytime anybody offered me a hand, I had the same answer ready. I can manage. I can do it myself. That was my prayer. I can do it myself. And every time I said it, it got a little more true in my head and a little more false in my life. Because I wasn't managing. My bills were a mess. I found out later I'd been paying for a magazine subscription for 3 years that I never read. And an insurance policy I didn't even need. My medicine. I'd let 2 of my prescriptions run low because refilling them felt like one more thing I'd have to ask somebody to help me figure out. And the longer I went without asking, the bigger the asking became in my mind. Until it felt like admitting I'd failed at the one thing I was proud of. Being independent. Then one Saturday, my sister Verna just showed up. Didn't call, didn't ask. Walked in with her own coffee and said, we doing this today. And we sat at my kitchen table for 4 hours, going through every paper in that house. And somewhere in the middle of it, I put my head down and I cried. Cried like I hadn't since the funeral. And I said, I can't do this by myself, Verna. Warning 5. You lose your sense of purpose. And that's where the dying really starts. After Walter passed and after my children were grown and gone, I'd wake up in the morning and lie there and think, what am I getting up for? Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, ordinary, terrible way. What's the point of making coffee for one? What's the point of getting dressed if nobody's gonna see me? I'd spent 50 years being needed. A wife, a mother, the one everybody leaned on. And then one morning, I woke up needed by nobody. I wasn't sick. I wasn't even sad exactly. I was just existing, breathing in and breathing out and watching the clock move. And that, let me tell you, is the most dangerous place a person can be, especially alone, because there's no one in the house to pull you back out of it. For a while there, I'd barely leave my bedroom, get the paper, go back to bed. That was my whole day. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock at my door. It was Tanya, the young mother who'd moved in across the street, frazzled, holding a little boy Andre by the hand, phone pressed to her ear. She'd gotten cold in the work, and the after-school sitter had fallen through, and she looked like she was about to cry right there on my porch. And before I even thought about it, I heard myself say, "I'll watch him. Go on, go to work." She looked at me like I'd handed her the moon. That little boy Andre sat at my kitchen table, and we colored, and he told me everything. About his teacher, about dinosaurs, about a boy at school who wasn't nice to him. And I sat there and I listened, and I felt something come back to life in my chest that I thought was gone for good. So those are the 5. The isolation that feels like freedom, the body that stops warning you, the self-care that slides away when nobody's looking, the help that gets harder to ask for, and the purpose you can lose without even noticing. I lived every one. I almost drowned in every one. And I came out the other side. Not perfect, not young again, but whole. Still here, still mine. If you're younger and you're watching your mother or your grandmother get older, hear me. Don't assume you know what she needs. Ask her. Sit down and actually ask her what she's most afraid of losing. You might be surprised it's not her health. It's her purpose. It's being somebody's first choice. And if you're my age, living alone like me, look around you. Look at who's on your street, who's in your building, who needs the very thing you still have to give. I almost let Tanya walk past my window that day without opening my mouth. But I didn't. I opened the door, and it changed everything. I'm 76 years old. I live alone. I need help sometimes, and I've learned how to ask for it. But I am not sitting here waiting to die. I'm living. I've got a drawing of a rocket ship on my fridge and a little boy coming at 3 o'clock, and that is more than enough. Thank you for sitting with me, all the way to the end. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving me a little of your time today.